They've built a bunch of modules on top of it and made it very so that it's like they've kind of had a team in Aconex that are like, we're going to build the everything construction platform. They built cost modules and other modules, and then they had a team inside of the Primavera suite being like, we're going to build the everything, and they've got cost modules, and so it's like no one knows. There's no unified product strategy. There's these teams that are like building somewhat competing, but also shit things.
But a company that had the valuation was nuts compared to the revenue.
Yep.
I think it was 1.4 billion on 25 million revenue.
On Aconex.
Yeah. Which means either they were banking on growth, which didn't happen, or they're doing it for the data.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of a third valid way of spending £1 billion.
Yep.
So I'm thinking it's all about the data, and they must just want to collect data. They don't care about awesome product market fit.
They bought that thing like 10, 15 years ago. They've been collecting data. Well, at some point, you have to do something with the data that makes it valuable to collect.
It's the long strategy.
We're playing the long game.
Yeah. Imagine the pitch. In 15 years.
Welcome back to the Offsite Podcast. I'm Jason Lancini, joined once again by Carlos Cavallo in office in London, in person.
Feels real.
It is.
Feels a lot more real than, I don't know if you've seen the news, but there is plans for a skyscraper to be hung from an asteroid. So it will hover above New York, between New York and a city in the southern hemisphere, and effectively move up and down, hanging down.
When you say news, you mean this was like anything classifies as news these days?
It's in the New York Times, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and CNN. Even Forbes wrote about it. It's from a legitimate architect claiming that it can be done.
Get at it. The asteroid's standing still?
Yeah, check this out. Hold on.
Well, while you send it to me, let me tell you what we're going to cover today.
I've just shared it.
So, in addition to we're just going to scrap the whole agenda and talk about the hanging skyscraper. But
logistically, what are the problems?
But in addition to that, we're going to do the obligatory talk about how Microsoft are going to stop building data centers, or are they? And then is the whole data center boom over or before it started? Then we are going to dive into a really interesting topic. The other week, we talked about Procore strategy, the product suite, what they might be doing going forward, competing with, say, an Autodesk. The name that everyone leaves out of all these conversations is Oracle, and what the heck they're doing. So we're going to talk about Oracle. And then finally, we're going to dive into a somewhat spicy post on LinkedIn calling most of ConTech vaporware and see what we think about that. But before that, we'll just take a quick aside and look at this asteroid hanging from the sky.
It's genius. You don't have to pay any land value. You just have to build it.
A New York City architecture firm plans to construct a massive hanging skyscraper tethered to an asteroid. People can just say anything these days, right?
Clicks are worth more than...
But there's not even is there a picture of the thing, or is it just we've said this thing?
I've just shared the screen.
ChatGPT is getting real good at image generation, right? I think that's the problem, right? It's so easy to make stupid images, and when they say prominent architecture firm, like, have you looked at this company on LinkedIn? There's like 3 employees that started yesterday.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Okay, cool. Well, shall we get back on the topic?
If we have to, yeah.
Okay, fine. I think we talked about it on air, but maybe not. There was a forecast that came out a number of weeks ago that talked about the number of data centers under construction breaching 4,000. It was like 4,750 data centers being built around the world, which that took me totally by surprise. And I had no idea that it was at that scale. This is a market that has been growing and growing and growing. I think in the last quarter, it grew 25%, the demand for data center construction, which is massive, if that compounds over time. And there's a whole marketplace of construction companies, developers, financiers, designers. We talked about the WSP partnership with it was Microsoft a few weeks ago, built around this massive growing space and demand. And the market got a little bit of a wobble in the last few weeks, where there were rumors that Microsoft was delaying or shelving plans for different data center projects around the world. And recently it's been officially validated that it is indeed pulling back some of its planned projects. So I guess the question that we're going to speculate on, that I think there's an entire world of people trying to work out at the moment, is this pulling back on stuff because they found better sites, or is it pulling back on stuff because maybe the potential revenue or the application for things isn't quite as hot as they were originally forecast?
It's a difficult one to answer because of the lack of information online. But if we cut down some of the numbers, so there's 4,750 data centers being constructed. 60% of those are the big four software houses, or cloud organizations. But half of them are in America. So we've got 2,000 data centers being built in America right now. If you take that proportion and you tie that to news of 1, 2, 3, 4 data centers being cancelled, it's actually quite insignificant in terms of the volume that's actually going on. But I think it hits the news quite hard because everyone is so unaware of how many are actually under construction at the moment. So I'm not sure it's a gauge of a slowing market. Very much looks like it's growing. But some of these things are hitting the news. And even in the UK right now, like last week, another £2.5 billion biggest data center in Europe has been announced, and the ball seems to keep rolling. My gut feel is Microsoft, the news on those data centers being cancelled is hitting the news because it's someone somewhere thinking it's something that'll be read and clicked. But in the grand scheme of things, a few data centers being cancelled in thousands. It doesn't seem like a big dent in any plans.
Yeah, it's unclear whether it's a Microsoft problem or it's a global demand for data center problem. Because I guess behind the scenes here, a couple of weeks ago, a company went public called CoreWeave, who are effectively a data center developer who effectively take on the capital cost of building or fitting out a data center and sign multi-year leases with the likes of Microsoft. Microsoft, one of the biggest customers. And this demand is suspected to be driven by the fact that Microsoft has an obligation to provide compute for OpenAI, and OpenAI is scaling so fast that they need to build it for them. So they can't build it fast enough, so they're getting CoreWeave to build it. And then so that's where the demand is. It's like a third derivative of demand. The thing that happened a number of months ago was that OpenAI partnered with that, what was it called? Stargate. So it was a combination of SoftBank and Oracle to build 500 billion or something worth of data centers in the US. And so it's almost like OpenAI might be going elsewhere for their data center needs other than Microsoft. So it could be that Microsoft was trying to forecast what the hell demand they would need from OpenAI, trying to aggressively acquire sites and the ability to build data centers. And now there's other people that can give that demand to OpenAI, therefore they might not need all of it. But yeah, the news reports that that they're walking away from some data centers. There's an example of a data center in Jakarta that they paused out like midway through construction. There's a bunch of other sites where they're reporting that they are kind of slow rolling. So they kind of got to deal signing stage and then have kind of fluffed along for a bit. I'd imagine the input to decisions of it from the Microsoft side is very dependent on like some forecast growth chart from, say, OpenAI. So there's a lot of moving parts. So it wouldn't surprise me that they over forecast in some areas and under forecast in others and need to change.
Thanks, roundabouts. The market of small nuclear reactors has also gone crazy. There's hundreds being planned right now. To meet the energy demand. So that's something that.
Are you putting one in your backyard?
Yeah, depends how much they pay me. So yeah, there's a huge amount of those ongoing at the moment. But then also just I tried to look into the contractors involved in these, because we obviously catch the news of large data center being won by a contractor. And it feels like big news at the time. But when we think about the 2,000 being built in America, someone's building them all. So according to some very loose research,
by an aforementioned service,
it claims there's DPR construction in America have 300 planned data centers to build. Turner have 250. And sorry, DPRs seems to be aligned with Microsoft and Meta, Turner, Google, and Tesla. They seem to be aligning with these partners. An organization called McCarthy doing a lot for Apple and Meta. But then it claims Balfour Beatty have 180 planned data centers at the moment. So, and with Mace with another 100. So whilst those numbers seem a bit wild, you would expect big news if Balfour Beatty have 180 data centers, but there are 4,000 being built and people are building them. So there's got to be some big players involved. But maybe a lot of them aren't public knowledge, or maybe these stats are completely wrong.
Yeah, not to dwell on the topic, it's an area where a lot of jobs and a lot of investment is hinging on a lot of hard to forecast numbers. So volatility should be expected.
Yep.
Right, let's dive into the meat of the conversation. 2 weeks ago we talked through a range of Procore's announcements from their 2024 Groundbreak event, and that was a great way to think about what is the strategy of a giant construction management platform company like Procore, and maybe contrasting how that differentiates them from other competitors in the space. We didn't actually talk very much about one of the biggest players in the space, being Oracle, and what their strategy may or may not be. Why do you think we didn't talk about Oracle?
We're inherently focused on tools for teams delivering jobs.
Yep.
Oracle have P6 has been there forever.
Yep.
Used by few, but almost every major scheme.
Yep.
And they've got tools like Aconex, boring old document management. It's widely used, but it's not exactly front and center on this is how we deliver a scheme. It does something very well. It's like a point solution, gathering lots of data. From an Oracle point of view, they don't really build tools for teams to deliver jobs. They're probably not every day thinking about hitting product market fit for tools actually in the field. It feels like it's a data collection exercise, and really they're putting all their money into the analytics, the ecosystem of data. So it feels like it's a tool for like AI auditors and
to push
PMO offices rather than
to push back on that a bit. Then, so if you think about the tools that that would be, or the elements or workflows in a construction project, let's focus on the construction phase because Oracle doesn't have a lot in the design phase. But let's say focus in the construction phase. What are the things you need to do? Well, there's probably like a cost management payment workflow piece, where Oracle has a connected cost product. Then they have a texture or payment management product, which was the thing that we talked about that had the legal dispute with Procore about copying. Then you obviously need something about schedule. And so obviously P6 is let's say the de facto for major schemes. And then they've got this Oracle Primavera Cloud product, and then they've got kind of like a lean task management thing. So they've got a bunch of products in that space. What else is important on delivering a project? Well, you've got people need the latest versions of the documents that they're going to build from, and you need to issue them to people, and the fact that they get them and update them, then that means like a common data environment is probably one of the more core things that you need, which Aconex historically has been the de facto as well. Then you probably need like a set of safety tools, OH&S safety tools, people resource management type tools. I guess if you were to build a suite of the functionality, if you look at like the set of tools that like a Procore and Autodesk have been building or are building, Oracle's had at one point the winner in a number of those categories, and it's got some gaping holes, and those products don't feel like they've moved at all ever. So do they care at all about competing in this construction management unified platform space, or are they happy just to collect the income until these products get superseded?
Yeah, I don't think they care too much for the holes. They have to do enough to stay relevant and to keep being used. But I think everything is around collection of data. They haven't got the same footprint on a project as an Autodesk or a Procore.
But if you went back 5 years before Autodesk Construction Cloud was unified, and that was a collection of messy tools in a very similar way to Autodesk's one right now is, and Procore was a smaller footprint. You look at Bentley's set of tools, that's a messy set of things as well. Hexagon is a messy set of different things. So they probably you could probably make a case that 5-10 years ago, the default was a kind of messy collection of tools owned by some holding company. Procore and Autodesk are breaking into this like unified platform. The others are either slow at doing so, or they don't care for doing it. And if you look at like Oracle's set of tools, they've got Primavera P6, Primavera Cloud, Primavera Lean, Aconex, Aconex Field, Aconex Model Coordination, Aconex Connected Cost, Textura Payment Method Management, Connected Intelligence Cloud, Smart Construction Platform, Portfolio Management. They've got a collection of these things. So should they not be building one platform?
We have a look at a lot of those apps. So we think about like daily coordination, safety, permits, a lot of the day-to-day running of projects. We look at like their planning tool. If we look at some of these tools, they've gone very surface.
Yeah.
And either they don't understand their customers or care for their customers and what they think.
Yep.
Or they're doing just enough to actually be sort of used or considered, which reinforces the use of the tools that sit above, which are the classic original Aconex, original P6 or OPC. There's a massive lack of investment or willingness to nail a product, which you would assume is not on purpose. Sorry, it's not by accident with a company that big with a foothold in construction.
Yep.
So why would you purposely not make a tool great to compete in a market?
Well, you could say it's not on purpose, because at the same time they're contributing to a $500 billion investment in data centers. It could just be that the business cares a lot more about other things, NetSuite and all their other products. The difference between Oracle and Procore, who's 100% in this space, Autodesk, who are kind of like in construction but also design, but it's not like they've got a million other things that they care about. Whereas Oracle's big business is not this construction marketplace. So it could be that they just don't care about it.
Yeah, I mean, it must be such a fragmented business. But even the construction engineering division, which isn't a small chunk of the business, there seems to be this theme of like they either buy a great tool, but they don't really build great tools. It feels like a lack of understanding or care for like the end users.
But then they did go this big investment of building Primavera Cloud and Primavera Lean. It's like it's hard to work out what the strategy is.
Yeah. Well, the strategy is not clear.
Let's flip it. If you were at Oracle, what would you be doing?
They've got a strong set of tools for gathering data. So just take P6 and Aconex. A lot of information there. And we look at investment in AI and Stargate and everything else. Are they going to go all in on AI to try and revolutionize how construction projects are actually built, rather than just build tools to like point solutions in a suite to manage day-to-day jobs and site activity? Yeah, to double down on data collection to really push into the AI space, I think is a relevant strategy over let's get everyone in construction using our tool to deliver projects. Because even Aconex, so Aconex, since they bought it, hasn't actually grown really. So they must have bought it, either they fucked up thinking they'd get
they've built a bunch of modules on top of it and made it very so that it's like they've kind of had a team in Aconex that are like, we're going to build the everything construction platform. They built cost modules and other modules, and then they had a team inside of the Primavera suite being like, we're going to build the everything, and they've got cost modules. And so it's like no one knows. There's no unified product strategy. There's these teams that are like building somewhat competing but also shit things.
But a company that had the valuation was nuts compared to the revenue. I think it was 1.4 billion on 25 million revenue
on Aconex.
Which means either they were banking on growth, which didn't happen, or they're doing it for the data. Because I can't think of a third valid way of spending £1 billion. So I'm thinking it's all about the data, and they must just want to collect data. They don't care about awesome product market fit.
They bought that thing like 10, 15 years ago. They've been collecting data. Well, at some point, you have to do something with the data that makes it valuable to collect.
It's the long strategy.
We're playing the long game.
Imagine the pitch. In 15 years.
If you want to know what I would do, if I could ask myself the question.
Go.
First, I'd decide if I care about the business or not. Either I want to win AEC or I don't.
The industry.
The AEC industry. Either I care about not the Oracle business, but that division that's trying to be an AEC. Either I want to win it or I don't, because there's no real benefit in coming third or fourth in this space. And if I did decide that I wanted to win it, I would be everywhere. I would say I would be trying to be in the seed and Series A rounds of like the AI companies like Trunk Tools or Document Crunch. I'd be trying to invest in those companies to get insight there, because at some point I want to buy them, and I want to buy them before Procore or someone else does. I would be thinking about the holes. I would be trying to build a unified product suite that isn't Aconex or Primavera. It'd be the Oracle
All or nothing.
Construction Cloud.
Yep.
And I would be thinking about the pieces that needs to contain. And I'm clearly missing health and safety, a bunch of field log workflow, basically forms and workflows. I'd be buying like a SiteMate, something like that.
Yep.
Something that captures that workflow in a way that has a decent user experience, not like the rest of my current product suite.
Yeah.
So I'd basically just identifying all of the holes in this unified construction suite that's going to get me to a spot that's got all of the pieces of a Procore or an
Pro full suite, tackle construction, go 100% in.
Yeah. And I would be investing in every company that I can that's in the space for insight and buying them early, not letting them get to a spot where the others are interested. I'd buy them early. I'd let them run and then I'd integrate them. And because at some point it's got to be, you've got to have this suite of tools. You've got to have a good user experience and you need to be on the cutting edge of the next paradigm shift, which is going to be how AI integrates into all these things. And I'd be doing something about P6.
You'll upset a few people. Yeah, I mean, they're trying.
Are they?
There's a cloud version that no one wants to use yet.
Oh, yeah, in the P6 side. But I've not seen them be active in any acquisition.
Yeah.
At all. Yeah, I definitely get the sense they're not interested in the business.
Yeah, it's a big cash cow for them. So
not
ride the wave as long as they can.
Yeah, but not if it's going to get eaten and taken away, because these other products like Autodesk Construction Cloud and Procore, they see that the last things that people are holding on to are like good CDE, like a good document management, common data environment.
Yep.
And they're not standing still; they're building it. Like we've spoken to the teams, we know they're building it.
Yeah.
And so it's a cash cow until it's not.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna take ages to turn this ship. So they need to be doing it now. Otherwise, they're gonna wake up one morning and have their lunch eaten for them. So my guess is they don't care.
Yeah. Or they're doing things very under the radar.
Yeah. Or doing things in just can't organize a piss up in a brewery.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Cool. It's interesting to see, either because this space is going to change rapidly.
Yeah, something has to change soon, otherwise.
Really soon, because this space is changing very quickly, and if they're not started now, it's too late.
Yep.
Topic 3. We like the idea of picking something that we've seen on LinkedIn and using that as a jumping off point. So there was quite soapbox spicy post that we saw recently claiming that most ConTech solutions are overrated. I'd go as far to say as it was calling a bunch of it vaporware, and that hurts the rest of the space and it hurts the industry, etc. So let me kind of summarize a bit of the content here. So it goes to say that most so-called ConTech solutions are overrated. The industry is flooded with mediocre point solutions that fail to deliver real value to customers. And it's one of the main reasons ConTech remains one of the least funded SaaS verticals, despite being one of the largest industries on the planet. It says that it drives the customers to be tired, users are tired, app fatigue is real. It makes the claim that most construction customers aren't using these tools for the reasons they're being sold, and are often still on free trials a year to 2 years later. What do you think is going on here? Maybe start with the definition. What do you think he means by overrated? Shall I shout out the author of the post, or is that too much of a call out?
I think it's fine.
All right. Ricky Sevta is the CEO at Deep Space, which is a construction management SaaS tool inside the industry, talking about the industry. So what do you think he means by overrated?
I love one of these rants on LinkedIn. He's pointing to a space that we've previously discussed, which is imagine you're on a construction project, and we know how busy you are on those projects.
Yep.
And you're constantly being bombarded with, here's the game-changing tool that's going to sort your life out, give you time back, and generate more cash or profit for the business.
Yep.
So there's always going to be fatigue because it's the biggest or one of the biggest industries in the world. Everyone wants to tackle it because of the size of it. Loads of these tools will be overrated, as he says. Everyone claims to be a silver bullet, but we know there aren't silver bullets. Like marketing does a marketing job. They're always going to overhype and over promise on the value of what something actually delivers. So I think he's got a point. I wonder what's driving the post itself, because it feels a bit ranty and probably a bit of a knee jerk from a conversation or some sort of challenge, maybe. I think I agree with some of the sentiment of what he's saying, which is there are lots of average tools that are being overhyped.
Do you think that he makes a comment of like, yeah, I agree. This doesn't feel like miles away from some stuff that we've said before on the in the podcast, or maybe even had our own version of a rant on LinkedIn. He makes the claim that like these customers are running free trials for 1.5 years in many cases.
Yeah.
Do you buy that?
The only situation I can imagine people doing that is when you first release like a beta version of a tool, and you do give it away for free, and you're burning investor cash.
Yep.
I don't think there's many tools that are like reasonably well established giving free tools for that long, unless it's like a new product in a suite of products. So I'm not sure about that, but maybe it's
you think he's referring to very, very early, like first pilots.
Yeah. Like you're our first project, have it for free so we can get feedback.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay for it. But
it doesn't feel like that's a big issue. Like if it's just the people that are just trying to get started,
losing out to a new tool in the market.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Well, if we buy the argument that there is all these tools that are overrated, do you think that there's anything to this industry being bad at making software?
Yes. Yeah. There's two kind of buckets of bad tools that we see, and one is
get poured into the bin.
Yeah. One is literally a form turned into an app.
Yep.
So it doesn't really save time. They'll probably pitch some analytics because we now have.
There's always like one LinkedIn post a week that's like, this is digitization, not digitalization, or what? You like make a digital version of the existing shitty process.
Yeah, exactly.
That thing.
So there's that bucket, and then there's the other side where you have like the founders are too academic.
Yeah.
So they go to the other extreme. You go to the other extreme and massively over-engineer and underappreciate what is needed to a point where they're almost confused that it's not being taken up because it's, in their view, saving or doing something extreme, but everyone goes, wow, that's just like so far from reality.
Yep. The things that are good about construction, especially if the founding team or whatever are from construction, the things that are good about people from construction is they will find solutions to any problem. The bad thing is, and they'll do that with whatever they have available. And the bad side to that is that will usually mean some hacky, things connected together with some strings and whatever on a project. That mindset applied to building a product can end up with some pretty convoluted and hard to use tools. So I think there is something to, you do need deep industry experience to understand the context of the people that are going to use or benefit from the software. But in order to have built that, you have built a kind of skill set that is, I'll solve any problem with a piece of sticky tape, a spreadsheet, and a whiteboard. And so I think there is something to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not going to name some examples, but yeah, we see it.
Well, version 1 of Apex.
Yeah, that was a fun time. So I think there is that balance. You need the real world experience to understand what teams actually need, and it doesn't end there. We speak to teams every single day to try and maintain some sort of understanding. And there's not over engineering to the point where teams on sites just go, that's just not something we like. It's so complicated. You're tackling problems that don't exist because you've picked at a thread and you've pulled it to a point where you're no longer in the industry in terms of that thought process.
Yeah, it's super hard to stay focused as well because you get that maybe they give the free trial to that first customer. That first customer goes, okay, you're solving, I don't know, you're doing photo sharing or whatever. We have this other problem that's immediately adjacent to photo sharing.
And we'll pay you for it. Shit. Okay, we'll do
that. I'm in London at the moment. The other night we went to a ConTech meetup, and I listened to conversation after conversation around the room of, we're building this thing for this customer because they like what we did on this thing, and it's like just adjacent to it. It's very hard to stay focused in the industry because of how it's this like 1,000 cottage industries. There isn't ubiquity instead of tools. processes inside companies vary slightly between company to company, and it's super easy to overfit to one company. Super easy.
Yeah, or one person's view within a company.
Or how Tom does document control is the app.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think your point about maybe really early applications, it also references that they're coding them with V0, which is one of these like vibe code, like a Lovable or Bolt. I've not seen it, but do you think people are like selling? Do you think people are vibe coding tools and try to sell them the next week in this space? Have you ever seen it?
I've never seen it. You might have to explain to everyone what vibe coding is.
Yeah. Okay. So let me wind back a bit. So you've heard of AI. Well, the thing that it's good at is writing stuff in languages. It's really good at writing code. And there are different applications emerging for the use of AI coding. So sometimes it's as an assistant in the process of coding with the developer. But there is also this new category of tool that's been lovably called vibe coding, where you can kind of think of it as you chat to the chatbot and it codes off the back of the chat. So you say, I want an app that does photo sharing, blah, 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 and it builds a version of that app. It's got bugs and stuff all over it, and you keep trying to work with it to improve it. And then occasionally you'll make a prompt and it will accidentally delete everything. And you'll go, oh, shit, I've lost it. So there's a bunch of these tools that have grown rapidly over the last even months. So Bolt is a big one, Lovable is a big one, and then other platforms that are existing platforms like Vercel, which is I don't know what that is, that have this V0 tool. Anyway, there's a whole space of them. If you're listening, I would recommend going and playing with one like a Bolt or a Lovable, because you can start for free and you'll be amazed at what you can build by just chatting to a chatbot. But do you think people are doing that and then trying to sell that up like a week later?
I'd imagine so, because if we think about like a Power Apps, how many teams we speak to that built some sort of form or something in a Power App?
Yeah.
If suddenly you go, okay, that's probably a consistent problem across loads of projects, you could pretty rapidly, on your own, at almost no cost, build an app, build a brand, build a website, try to sell it. And you can imagine them just being thrown everywhere. So we're removing the need for developers, in theory, to an extent. So suddenly it opened up a lot of doors to people without venture capitalist cash or even their own cash to do side hustles and try and push it. And it's quite a small network of people. So if you are someone that has a network and you have built an app, you're probably throwing it around quite easily.
Having played with these tools, it's super easy to get to something that's like, well, that was a pretty cool party trick. But the second you try and fix some, it's very hard to get something fully polished. So if that is happening, I think I'm back on Ricky's side, because that's going to confuse confuse and burn a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would go far, but it gives the impression that there's lots of apps out there.
Yeah, it just muddies the whole space. Yeah, for sure. Keep the LinkedIn post going. We'll keep discussing.
Thanks, Ricky. Right.
You want to read us out?
I think so. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into today's show. If you did enjoy today's episode, please do think about liking this video or following us on your chosen podcast platform. We really appreciate your support, and we'll catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.